Imagine it's Halloween in 1974. The sun is going down. Children's laughs are echoing through the dimly lit streets, and everyone is dressed up, adventuring from door to door, with their bags filling up with candy. Unfortunately, things aren't as good as they seem. Hiding beneath this tradition is a nightmare that will forever change the way parents view Halloween. A nightmare created by Ronald Clark O'Brien, who then became known as the Candyman. Ronald Clark O'Brien lived in a suburban community located in Deer Park, Texas. He was known as a quiet, ordinary father of two. But behind all of this lays a dark secret: financial desperation. He was drowning in debt and on the edge of losing everything. Deep in his mind, he created a horrific plan to solve his problems. O'Brien decided to take out life insurance on his children weeks before Halloween. These policies were worth around $60,000, which was a sustainable amount back in the 1970s. Something unthinkable had to happen for his plan to work. Halloween night came by, and O'Brien took his two children named Elizabeth and Timothy trick-or-treating in a neighborhood nearby. A family friend and their children had joined them. They went door to door, filling up their bags with candy. O'Brien was lacking behind, seeming distracted. They went to one house, but no one was home. The children ran ahead to the next house, while O'Brien stayed behind. O'Brien had caught up with them and had 5 pixie sticks, thin tubes of powdered candy. He had told the children that the homeowners had given him the candy, so he handed them out to the children, leaving the last 2 for his own. The children were all happy with their candy, and later that night, O'Brien encouraged his son to try the pixie sticks. Timothy was very excited. He opened the tube and poured the sugary powder into his mouth. Something wasn't right. The powder tasted bitter and not like candy. O'Brien had quickly handed him a glass of Kool-Aid to wash it down, but it was too late. Timothy was in agony and started to vomit uncontrollably. Minutes passed, and unfortunately, Timothy fell unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. His small body was unable to cope with the poison in his system. The cause of this was cyanide poisoning. The police were baffled. Why would somebody put cyanide in Halloween candy? Panic spread quickly, and the community was left in fear. Parents across the country began checking their children's Halloween candy that still continues to this day. As the investigation continued, the truth soon came out, revealing a story even more horrifying than the legend that follows. The poisoned pixie sticks did not come from the homeowners. It came from Ronald O'Brien himself. The police managed to piece together his evil plan. The life insurance policies he had set up, the pixie sticks handed out to other children and not just his own, the cold plan he had to sacrifice his son's life for money. During the investigation, they had found out that O'Brien had made an inquiry with chemists about cyanide. They had also found out that he had visited a store to buy the poison, but had left empty-handed as he only wanted a small amount. He later obtained it from another source, leading to his son's fate. On March 31st, 1984, almost a decade after Timothy's death, Ronald O'Brien was arrested and found guilty of murder. O'Brien was executed by a lethal injection. He soon came to be known as the Candyman, ruining the innocent joy of Halloween, making it a night of fear and worry. As you prepare for Halloween, remember the story of Timothy O'Brien, the father who betrayed his son. Be careful, because the horrors aren't always monsters and ghosts. The house is dark. The kids are asleep upstairs. It's a quiet evening, and a young babysitter is settling in for a normal night routine of watching over the children. The silence is broken as the phone starts ringing. The babysitter answers, expecting it to be the parents, checking up to see if everything's okay, but it's not. She hears heavy breathing coming from the phone, and a voice asking, "Have you checked on the children?" She hangs up thinking it's a prank call. The phone rings again, and it's the same voice, more adamant this time. "Have you checked the children?" She checks the doors and windows are locked, trying to shake off the fear as her heart is pumping out of her chest. Again, the phone rings, but this time the voice is angry and starts shouting. "Why haven't you checked the children?" The babysitter was terrified, leading to her calling the police. The police advised her to keep the caller on the phone if he calls again, so they can try and trace where it is coming from. Finally, after waiting, the phone starts ringing. The same voice was on the other end and was filled with rage. The same question was asked, "Why haven't you checked the children?" Her voice started trembling in fear as she tries to keep him talking. Moments later, the phone goes silent. The dispatcher urgently tells her to get out of the house. The call is coming from inside the house. Fear took over her body as she ran towards the door, just as the police arrive. They run upstairs and find a horrifying sight. The man was hiding inside the house the whole time. Thankfully, the children were unharmed, but the thought of what could have happened is enough to leave anyone horrified. This legend called "The Call is Coming from Inside the House" has haunted babysitters and parents for years. Not like most urban legends, this one led to a horrifying reality. In 1950, a babysitter named Jeanette Chrisman experienced a babysitter's worst nightmare. On March 18, 1950, a cold night in Columbia, Missouri. Jeanette Chrisman, 13 years old, was babysitting for a family she knew well. The family had gone out for the evening, leaving Jeanette to babysit their 3-year-old son, Gregory. Jeanette was an experienced babysitter, and the night appeared to be like normal. She put Gregory to bed and settled in for a quiet evening. Around 10:30 p.m., the Columbia police had received a terrifying phone call. The voice on the phone call was Jeanette screaming for help. The call handler could hear the fear in her voice, but the line went dead before Jeanette could give her name and address. They were unable to trace the call. A few hours passed, and the family returned home. Jeanette had been found in a severely injured state, and the crime scene was deeply disturbing. The nature of the assault was brutal and shocking. Despite the disturbing crime, the 3-year-old boy was left unharmed asleep in his bed. The investigation was deep and left more questions than answers. One of the suspects was a friend of the family, Robert Mueller. He had shown a strange interest in Jeanette. Some reports say he had made unsettling comments about her. To this day, Jeanette's case remains unsolved. Considering all of the suspicion on Robert Mueller, there was not enough evidence to charge him. The horror of Jeanette Chrisman's murder and the disturbing phone call has connected her story to true crime and urban legends. Although the details may differ, the legend remains the same, a reminder that danger can come from places we feel most safe. Imagine you're on a nice, peaceful gateway. You check into a hotel. The staff are friendly, and it all seems comfortable. However, this ordinary stay is about to take a creepy, chilling turn. Night falls and you prepare for bed. The room is clean, but you can't shake the chill filling the air. You push it aside and assume it's just the hotel's age. You get into bed and try to settle in. The bed is old-fashioned, but seems sturdy. As you're moving around, you can't help but notice a creaking noise, but you just brush it off as old furniture and go to sleep. You wake up suddenly in the middle of the night with a horrible sense of unease. You try to shake it off and go back to sleep, but you can't. Unable to cope anymore, you get out of bed and check under the bed to see what's causing the noise. As you reach for a flashlight, you notice something that sends chills through your body. Only just visible, hidden within the shadows, is a discolored large object, too large to be any belongings. With your heart racing, you shine the flashlight underneath the bed. The flashlight reveals something disturbing: a human body. With your trembling hands, you shine the light away. You begin to realize the beautiful hotel has a sinister history. The hotel is covering up crimes, and the body is from a previous guest who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. You leave the hotel with a horrible feeling and disbelief from the horror that was hidden beneath you. A series of real-life incidents backs up this urban legend, making it a reality. One of the events is the 1982 incident in Kansas City, Missouri. It was a summer evening in Kansas City, Missouri. After a long day on the road, a traveler was hoping for a peaceful night. They checked into the Capri Motel. The motel was not luxurious, but it offered a clean room with a comfortable bed. An unpleasant odor greeted him as he entered the room. He assumed it was just a musty smell from the building being old. He settled into bed and was finding something to watch on the old television, but the smell was still lingering in the air. As the night went on, the smell grew worse. He couldn't get comfortable. Tossing and turning, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Despite his tiredness, he couldn't get to sleep. The smell was awful, filling the entire room. It filled his lungs with every breath he took. Morning came by, and the smell was unbearable, so he decided to report it to the receptionist. The motel staff realized there was an issue, and it wasn't due to the cleanliness. The disgusting smell was coming from beneath the bed. They lifted the mattress and found something disturbing and downright terrifying. A decomposed body that had been stuffed beneath the mattress. It was terrifying, and what's worse is the realization of the traveler when he realized he was sleeping above a deceased body. It was later found out that the deceased was a victim of foul play. The killer had hid the body in the room and fled. This chilling discovery sent fear and panic throughout the community. The hotel became infamous for its disturbing event. The story soon spread and added another layer to the urban legend: the body under the bed. You're driving through a quiet rural area late at night, and your headlights from your car is piercing through the darkness. As you go round a corner, you hear a creepy sound and footsteps in the distance, but nothing is there. This is the legend of Charlie No-Face. Raymond Robinson, born in 1910 in Pennsylvania, was a man whose story would become a mystery. There are many stories as to what happened, but when Raymond was 8 years old, he suffered a catastrophic incident. He accidentally touched a high-voltage power line, which then left him with severe facial damage. Growing up, Raymond lived hiding within his community. Due to his facial scarring, he barely made public appearances. This led to him walking at night when the streets were dark and empty. It was during these late walks that the legend of Charlie No-Face began. From the eerie tales surrounding him, he became Charlie No-Face to the locals. People said they saw a mysterious figure roaming the roads at night, a person whose appearance was so unsettling. Some people claimed the figure had an unnatural glow, which was due to the darkness and the reflections of car headlights. Despite all these creepy tales, Raymond was a nice soul. He just wanted to live a quiet life, away from all the nosy eyes of the world. Yet as he walked the roads, his story grew into a legend. Raymond Robinson passed away in 1985. He left behind a legacy of horror and humanity. His life was shaped by isolation and deep personal tragedy. The story of Charlie, No Face, serves as a reminder that people can create legends and share things about people who are different and judge them without actually knowing the truth. It also shows that Raymond's personal tragedy led him to isolation, which was then made into something supernatural and scary. The legend shows that some people can turn the unknown into something more, creating fear and doing this at the expense of the individual behind the tale. Charlie No Face reminds us that real life suffering can be overlooked because of myths and legends. As a result of the myths and legends, it was hard to see the reality of his life. Instead, there were frightening stories about him. This defeated the truth of who he was and what he went through. It was a cold evening on October 1970, and the quiet areas of Fairfax County, Virginia, were starting their preparation for Halloween. The local legends around Halloween were always brought up. Stories were shared over sleepovers and campfires, diving into fear. Imagine you're driving down a dark road and you approach a bridge. But this isn't any bridge. Locals call it the Bunnyman Bridge. This legend goes back decades. A nearby asylum full of people was shut down. This meant the patients had to be transferred. On a cold night, the bus transforming these patients crashed. Most of the people were caught except for one, Douglas Griffon. Griffon was admitted for murdering his family on Easter Sunday. The police searched for days, but he was never found. Locals soon started reporting lifeless rabbits near the bridge. Their remains were in unsettling conditions. The scared locals shared that the think Griffin was still in the woods, surviving on the rabbits, and that he started wearing rabbit skin, making himself into the Bunny Man. The search became intense leading up to Halloween, but the only thing found was the remains of rabbits. Halloween night approached, and a group of teens decided to test themselves and visit the bridge. The next morning, they were found by the bridge the same way the rabbits were left. Ever since that night, legend has it that if you visit the bridge at midnight on Halloween, you won't come out. Some claim they see a figure in a rabbit suit, and some say they hear the sound of an axe being sharpened. They say the bridge leading through the woods was once just a passage, but now it is something far more sinister, and people who encounter the Bunny Man never forget it. The legend of the Bunny Man is rooted in a real-life event that took place in 1970, Fairfax County, Virginia. The true story is less gruesome than the legend, but it still contributes to the urban legend, making it a reality. In October 1970, a young couple were driving by Fairfax when they parked up their car in a field. Creepily, a man appeared dressed in a white bunny costume, holding an axe. The man shouted at them and threw the axe into the car window. Nobody was hurt, but it indeed shook them up. This incident was reported to the police, and a few days passed by before another incident took place. A construction worker had reported seeing a man dressed in a bunny costume chopping at a porch. The police done their investigations, but were unable to find the man responsible. Over time, these events backs the legend, making it a reality. The legend speaks of a man who escaped a mental asylum and commits crimes near a bridge. But the true story is a series of unsettling encounters rather than a tale of horror.